Hello, welcome to First Tuesdays. Thank you for joining us today. With me today is Carolyn Peterson from the Washington State Library, and I'm Jennifer Fenton from the Washington State Library, and we are happy to bring you today's program. And we also have Jeremy with us today, behind the scenes providing tech support. Thank you, Jeremy. And First Tuesdays is our monthly webinar series brought to you by the Washington State Library with funding from the Institute of Museum and Library Services. And today we are thrilled to have one of our very own who is going to talk to you about conservation, from Conservation Kitchen Series, Recipes for Disaster. Please welcome Diane Hutchins from Washington State Library. Take it away, Diane.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you, Jeremy, in the background for managing the tech support today, and thank you, Jennifer, for your gracious introduction. I'm going to talk about what you can do to prevent damage, because in an age of no money or little money and little staffing, it helps to avoid damage. That saves you money and saves you time. And so this is what I call recipes for disaster, things to look for and things to avoid. One key thing with environment is the temperature, the relative humidity is key to keeping collections safe and sound. Collections are kind of like people. They like a comfortable environment. And it's kind of warm these days, and collections don't like that. Insects do. Mold loves humidity and heat, but collections don't. And you want to keep a nice, comfortable temperature. Cool and dry is ideal, is 65 degrees or lower. That's a little chilly for some people, especially if you have collections in a library. 70 is a good compromise where people are comfortable and collections are still comfortable. You also want to watch relative humidity. You don't want it to be like a steam bath. Relative humidity should be no higher than 50%, but you don't want to make it too dry because then things can become rather brittle. So you really don't want things to go lower than 30%. And above all, you want things to be stable. If you think about organic materials absorbing water and then drying out, they're expanding, they're contracting, it leads to deterioration. We have a graphic here from a Preservation Environmental Monitor that shows really, literally graphically, bad conditions. On the left-hand side is spiking in temperature, and also the temperature is way above what it should be. And on the right-hand side, the relative humidity range isn't bad, but there are spikes, which again is not a good thing. So stability is key. Again, watch those spikes and watch out for fluctuations. Ideally, you don't want the temperature to fluctuate more than 2 degrees Fahrenheit, and you don't want relative humidity to fluctuate more than 3%. And again, that's ideal, but that's what you'd ideally like to aim for. And then to track it, it helps to have monitors. Again, these are an expense item, so this is something you could put on your wish list. But it's really nice to be able to track what the conditions are and to have a graphical report that you can show to people that manage your conditions in your institution. We have preservation environmental monitors, and it's kind of nice because you just put everything on a disk, take it to your computer, and you can feed the data and generate reports. People love a fireplace and books. It looks lovely, but it's not great for your collections. There are fluctuations in temperature. If you've got a wood-burning fire, there are combustibles and pollution. So as lovely as this looks, it's really not a good situation for your materials. Light is a horrible enemy of materials. It's one of the biggest problems we have at the State Library. You can see here very graphically where this book that was originally a very dark color has faded on the spine and the top, and it's turned almost into a yellow color. So you want to try to keep things dark. You can lower the shades, you can close the blinds, If possible, turn off lights, maybe put them on a timer if you can. If you have curtains, you can put those in to block sunlight. And then if you have fluorescent lighting, you can use filters over the fluorescent fixtures. And then also if you have windows, you can block the light with UV filters. There's film that you can put on the windows. We did that here. We did actually two things. We did the film, plus we did blinds, which was very helpful. And another way you can do this is to put rare materials into protective enclosures. Again, budget is an issue, but if you have the money, that protects them as well. If you are having an item on display, you want to make sure that you turn the pages at least every week so that you don't have materials fading. And then an even better solution is if you can put a facsimile on display, then you're not risking the original. That's ideal. There are ways of tracking fading. A very cheap way to do this is blue wool fade cards, where you can put these in your collections. You cover one side of the card and then you expose the other side, and in a few months you can see the fading effect. And I never thought of this. My husband and I are getting our house painted, and we were thinking of blue, and the contractor said, oh no, that fades very readily. And it dawned on me, of course, you know, the blue is used for the fade card. So this is a very volatile color, and it's a good way to see what's going on with your collections. Cleanliness is a very key thing. You don't want materials damaged by grease or spills. You don't want to attract insects with food particles, so you just keep the collections and the food separate if at all possible. And off-gassing is an issue, and it's something I never knew about till relatively late in life. But if you've got, say, oak bookshelves, oak is a horrible material for collections because it's a very highly acidic material. And there's a thing called acid migration, where the acid within the shelves can migrate into the collections and cause damage. Particle board is a really bad material. Plywood is bad. All of these materials have they've outgassed volatile acids, and so they're very harmful for collections. Baked enamel used to be the way to go, but they've discovered that also presents off-gassing problems, especially white shelving. If you have the budget, powder-coated steel shelving is preferred. Anodized aluminum is nice, but it's extremely expensive, so maybe put that on your wish list. And if you have wood shelving, there are ways to treat it. It's a little time and labor intensive, but it's doable. And the New England Document Conservation Center has a leaflet on how to do that, and I will reference that later on in the presentation, how you can access that. You want to watch out for chemicals and cleaning products that are used around collections. Again, they're chemicals, they off-gas, and they can cause damage. A key thing to understanding damage of materials is how books are constructed. And you see typically the head cap is torn in many cases on a book. That's the top part of what you think of as the spine. Also sometimes the text block, which is the big chunk of paper that comprises the book, starts to tear away from the cover of the book, and it's a very delicate construction. The inner hinges are extremely delicate and easily tear. But if books are shelved and handled properly, you can avoid or minimize a lot of that damage. You also want to be prepared against disasters. Ideally, don't put any collections in basements. You think of floods, pipe breaks, mold, insects. Those locations are bad. And you also want to have a contingency plan to know what to do if there is a disaster. And planning ahead is a good thing. WestPass offers free workshops, and I include announcements of those in WSL updates. So if you are not subscribed to that, subscribe, and you'll see announcements of the WestPass workshops. There's a 2-day commitment for these, full day, and you actually write a disaster plan, and you gather information about your collections that can come in handy for any time there is a disaster. Again, have that plan in place, because trying to deal with emergencies when they happen and not having a plan is just very hard to manage. You also want to know your first responders ahead of time, and you could invite them maybe to a potluck. You could bring them coffee and donuts if they like that, and bring them your floor plan and show them where you have collections that are of concern, that you'd like special care if there is a disaster. But it helps to know them ahead of time, and they get to know you and your building. It's a good thing. You want to avoid quickly in the event of an emergency to avoid big problems. You can see here this book has been water damaged and mold has started to take root. And this is a very, very bad problem, and it can spread to the rest of your collections. Another thing that sometimes you encounter is people like to bring newspapers or collections into the bathroom, and again, not a good thing. They can be exposed to water and bad handling, so not a good idea. And then there's been some debate about handling rare collections with white gloves. Seems like the majority feeling now is that white gloves may cause more damage than they avoid with paper materials, because you lose an ability to have a greater tactile sense. If you want to have gloves, a better route to go is with nitrile. Latex can present some problems for people who have latex allergies. In the case of photographic materials, you do want to have white gloves, cotton, lint-free. You can use nitrile, again, if cotton is not an option. And with photographic materials, you want to make sure that the photographs are handled only on the edges, and that the back of the photograph is supported, and that the surface is not touched, because that's an extremely sensitive area. With copying, you may have seen this many times, that that delicate spine can get broken by the way things are copied. People press down really hard. If you have it in your budget or want to put it on your wish list, there are copiers that are made that allow materials to be treated more gently. This is a binder-minder copier that we have here in the library, and it allows the gutter to be copied more easily without that compression. Ideally, you want to put materials in a cradle if you are going to make images, and have a camera set up on a stand with the flash turned off, and then you can get a nice image of that rare item. And you can even improvise cradles with 2 towels, ideally white towels. And there are sources too, conservation, the American Institute for Conservation and the National Park Service have some free instructions on making your own book cradles. And so you can also try that instead of spending a lot of money to buy a prefabricated one. And these also come handy if you put displays on. Again, in terms of avoiding damage, you want to shelve materials on book trucks just the way you would on the shelves, where things are not in a jumble as they are here in this photo. And also in terms of leaning, the leaning can cause damage, so you want to make sure items are properly supported with bookends. Here on the left-hand side, you can see a typical activity where you see people that pull on the top of the head cap. That can cause that damage, and there's a lot of labor involved to repair that. So what you want to do is on the right-hand side, when you're removing a book from the shelf, is to push the books on either side of the book you want to remove back a little ways, and then grasp the book by the spine on either side and then pull it out. It avoids that head cap damage. And if you avoid damage, you save money and you save time. Foredge, you see this a lot, where books are shelved on their foredge and the spine is facing upward, which is great because you can read the call numbers, but unfortunately, because of the gravity of the text block, that starts to pull away from the case or the cover of the book, and again, that's a time-intensive thing to repair properly. So what you want to do is either have the shelves at the adequate height to support the books, or if that is not feasible, what you can do is shelve the books on their spines, and that avoids that pulling down where the gravity is having such a negative effect on the item. So I've seen this too, where the tops of books are used as a secondary shelf, and you can imagine that having a book on top of other books is going to create damage. Not all books are at the same height, so this is not a good practice. You want to make sure you have enough room in the shelf and the shelves are at the right height. This is an example where materials are shelved just way too tight in the shelf. The depth of the shelves isn't adequate for some of the materials. You can see some of them are sticking out too much. The shelves are not spaced high enough. Short books are shelved in with tall books, and these really should be split out and put into oversized and smaller sized books. This just creates damage. So here, deeper shelves have replaced the narrower shelves. There is actually an earthquake truss on here to just in case there might be a disaster. The bookends have been replaced so that there are sturdier bookends, taller bookends, and nothing is jutting over the edge. So this is really the way to go. You avoid damage by just shelving things in the right way. And then sometimes you have materials that just don't get along. This is a super fancy cover, and you can imagine if you shelved that in a regular way, it would get damaged. We've had some materials in our collection. We have one that's an anthracite cameo that's mounted on a wooden case of a book, and that would do damage to the items that are shelved next to it. So sometimes you want to have a special enclosure to prevent damage either to the item being enclosed or to its neighbors. The New England Document Conservation Center has information about making book shoes, and here's a photograph of one that was constructed as part of a conservator's conservation portfolio. And it's a rather attractive way to have an item on the shelf and well protected. You don't want to use office supplies. People are well-meaning and they'll come in with glue and say, well, let me fix this for you. I noticed it's falling apart. It's really bad if you've ever used some of the wood glues. It's very stiff when it hardens, and it's just not good for materials. Just keep them away from collections. Here's examples of here's cellophane tape where that discolored. It's really impossible to remove the staining once it's on there. There are paper clips that rust over time, and so they'll leave their mark. And then people use foreign objects in books to do a variety of things, and again, you don't want to do that. Twine is a bad thing. It really can literally slice your collection to bits, so you don't want to have that near your collections. Protective enclosures are a better way to go. Even if you just had a few, it's a start, and it does cost some money, but it gives you a good feeling that you've started to protect your collections. There are portfolio binders for smaller materials, and then there are ready-made archival storage boxes for the larger materials, or beyond oversized, where they really need a lot of room. There was a practice in the past of using leather dressing on materials, but in recent times the consensus is that this is not a good thing to do. You really have to know what you're doing to be a conservator to use this. What dressing can do is actually cause leather to dry out over time, can result in uneven staining. It darkens the leather, causes the leather to stiffen. It's kind of the opposite of what you would anticipate. It can also leave a sticky residue, so you're getting dust attracted to your materials, which is not a good thing. And then through acid migration, the dressing can actually cause staining into the pages of the book. So leave this to a conservator. A better route to go is to put leather materials that are deteriorating into protective enclosures. This is one of our wonderful preservation volunteers, Gordon, and he enclosed all of our territorial materials that were deteriorating in protective boxes. And these were custom made for us at a very low cost. Average cost was about $10 per box. Some of them were less. They were about $7. Some went up to about $15. But they're very easy to put together, and they just do a great job of protecting materials, and easy to put together. A lot of fun to put together. I've mentioned tape before, where sometimes you see people put corner protectors on books. It's really bad for special collections. Cellophane tape is horrible. It just does so much damage, and it just really can't be undone. And then some well-meaning person used book tape once upon a time to laminate an original historic map in our collection, and you can see all the wrinkles, and it's just not a good thing. I don't know how we'd ever be able to undo this. It's just so damaged. It's horrible. I've mentioned acid migration, and this is a great example where the acidic ink that was used to print the book has literally migrated through tissue that covers the portraits that are on the right-hand side of the page of this book into the opposite side. On the left-hand side, you can see mirror images of those portraits, and it goes several pages beyond that. And anything that's acidic does this. So if you've got, say, a newspaper clipping tucked into an old Bible or book, that, if it's an acidic paper, which it probably is, that will migrate and the acid will travel through the book. If you've got materials like photographs or paintings that are put into an acidic mat, that acid will migrate from the mat into the paper where the image is, whether it's the photograph or the painting. Book plates, they're wonderful, they're lovely, but some of them can be acidic, or the glue can be acidic. And shelving, as I mentioned before, leather is acidic. Dust jackets can be acidic if the paper is acidic. Pressed flowers, sometimes you'll see pressed flowers that are put into books, and you really have a problem there because the flowers would be acidic. Construction paper is bad, that's acidic as well. Cardboard, just regular cardboard, if you have materials that are stored in cardboard, the acid in the cardboard can go into the materials themselves. And then sometimes inks, this is an example of inks that can be acidic. You may see old manuscripts that were written with iron gall ink, and if the ink formulation was on the higher acidic side, that can literally eat holes in the paper. And I've seen that in courthouse records. They've seen it in Bach manuscripts where the notes have eaten holes in the paper. It's just a really pervasive problem and something to be very aware of. Acid over time, here's an example from my collection where you've got a brittle book where the acidic content is so bad that the paper is literally starting to crumble, just like little flakes of snow. There's a great movie called Slow Fires on the Preservation of the Human Record that is available for sale from the American Film Foundation, and it's very moving just to see the cultural heritage that is slowly dissolving or being destroyed because of acid in brittle books. So it's a problem. And you hear the term archival quality many times in catalogs. You may see that this is archival quality, and that. It's kind of like organic. What does organic mean, or what does natural mean? And it doesn't really mean anything. So even though it may say in the catalog archival or acid-free, you have to be aware of what that might or might not mean. Sometimes something can be acid-free just on the surface, but the core may be acidic, and again, because of acid migration, the item that's in the acid-free enclosure may eventually be damaged by the core, the acid in the core migrating through the acid-free coating and then getting into the material. And so you may see a real bargain for preservation supplies, but if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And so you want to steer away from that and be aware of the right terms where when you're buying something, you want to make sure it really is safe. And you may see plastic sleeves. What you want to look for is Melanex 516 or Mylar D. Also something that says PAST, PAT, which is the photographic activity test. Sometimes you'll see, this is polyester, but it's a very specific polyester. But you'll sometimes see sleeves that are polyethylene and other materials that aren't 100% stable. So the best way to go is with Melanex or Mylar D. And then for paper or board, you want to make sure that it's permanent or permanent durable, not just acid-free. You want to make sure the pH is a 7.0 or 8.5 throughout, and again, not just the veneer. There's low lignin. The lignin is what makes trees stand up straight, and so you want to make sure with lignin, the drawback with lignin is that it also destroys paper. It's kind of a self-destructive element. You want to make sure the paper is chemically purified and it's buffered, generally a 3% calcium carbonate buffering, but there's some materials that are alkaline sensitive, like blueprints, that do not like the buffering, so you have to be aware of that. And then there are NISO standards for everything, and there are NISO standards for paper permanence, and you can actually view those online, and I have information about that where you can access that. The Florida State Library has a great site on buzzwords in the archival industry, and it's a great thing to check out. I just love the way they do it. It's very understandable. We had photos in our collection that people wanted to use and look at, and we found some polyester Melanex sleeves that we were able to use, and it's been a great solution to make these available. I offer here just a sampling of suppliers that offer materials that are safe and have the information such as whether or not they're lignin-free and chemically purified and so forth. So this gives you some information to get a start if you do decide to invest in some material enclosures. And then I would look at things, and the question always came to mind, what do I do with and then fill in the blank. We had so many things to address at the State Library. Here with a rare book, ideally you want to find a conservator. You don't want to try to fix something yourself if it's a rare book. And the American Institute for Conservation has a great website where you can go into their database, put in your zip code or your location, decide what type of conservator you need, if it's for an object, if it's for book and paper, photographic materials. This will help you find somebody that is reputable and knows what they're doing. And again, this involves money, and we don't always have the budget to do this. So what you can do is buy some time and box it. And these are literally materials from our territorial collection, and they were some of the worst that really needed to have some time. So we bought an assortment of boxes, custom-made boxes, to have a little more protection for them, to create a microclimate for them so that the deterioration would slow down until such time as we could have them treated. A third option is cotton or linen tape or polyester strap, but it's not anything you want to use with brittle materials, and I would say this is maybe my last choice because it's so easy to create damage by trying to tie this back together again, and people rush, and if you have books that have a leather material that's deteriorating, this can create more damage. Fourth option is wrapping these in acid-free, lignin-free tissue, and that preserves, again, creates a little bit of a microclimate and protects the materials from light, abrasion, and dust. Then sometimes you'll have journals or pamphlets that are brittle. I've seen things put into envelope enclosures. It seems like they're everywhere. But if you think about pulling something in and out of an envelope enclosure and it's already ripped or it's brittle, it's going to get more ripped. And so if you have to put it in something, a portfolio binder is the way to go. That will protect the item from damage. You just lay it very gently in the center, put the flaps over it, and close the cover, and it can go on the shelf. And again, it's buying time for the item. You don't want to put twine or rubber bands on things. As you can see very graphically here, it's going to cause damage. And if you have a non-brittle rare journal or pamphlet, another route to go, you can repair tears with Japanese tissue and wheat paste. And we have I'll mention it later on. We have the Conservation Kitchen Series 1 and 2 that we have actual recordings of how to do the repairs with Japanese tissue and wheat paste. Once the repairs are made, the item can be sewn into a pamphlet binder, and that gives it some protection on the shelf. If you have a circulating or non-rare journal or pamphlet, you can repair tears with document repair tape. This is just something, it's almost like, you might almost regard it as a disposable collection. So you can do that. You could staple the item into a binder, or have the Library Binding Institute approved bindery wire stitch the item into an enclosure. This is something, if it's on the shelf, it's used a lot. Maybe it's, I don't know if you do it for Good Housekeeping or a local travel brochure. But it comes in handy for things that are on the shelf and used a lot, and you're not going to put them into special collections. Key thing is making sure that things fit. I many times have seen items put into, here's an envelope binder, not one of my favorite items, but this is way too small for the item that's in there. The cardboard doesn't even close, or the boards of the enclosure don't even close. On the right-hand side, there's an item that's been put into a ready-made box. It's not a custom box, and it just rattles around inside, and that can create damage. And here's an example of an enclosure that was so large that the item inside literally curled, and again, you know, all the time that's going to be spent to try to fix this could have been avoided. Here's an example where for a while we had some maps and blueprints stored, as it were, in some moving boxes, and they were tearing and just a mess. So we slowly got them all encapsulated, and so they could be used and stored flat. But having them in rolled up tubes like on the left-hand side is just bad. It causes so much damage. One thing you can do too with flat files is to put them into a lignin-free, acid-free folder, if you can find one that size, or you can put them into a portfolio binder. The other option, as I showed in the last slide, is to encapsulate them again in Melanex 516 or Mylar D. You don't want to use any other material. And it's great. Do not encapsulate, never encapsulate. And this is that map I mentioned earlier where it would just, this is heartbreaking. You just never want to do that. And this was done on both sides of the item. There's book tape on the back of it as well, and it's just sad. Here's the encapsulation process. There's a little debate about this. We saved up some money, and we were able to get a sonic sealer. This case is an example, and we were using this on a Washington Reads poster where we used the double-sided tape, acid-free tape, and the Melanex. And this is something where it's just going to be handled. It's a more not circulating, but a more publicly used collection, not a special collection. And this is perfectly acceptable. But there's some concern for special collections with the double-sided tape that adhesive over time might come into contact with the items. So there's caution there. Friable materials, if you have anything in your collections like pastels, charcoal drawings, pencil drawings, anything with a very delicate surface, you don't want this to come in contact with Mylar or Melanex or even your hand. You want a sink mat for this, and there's some good information at the Canadian Conservation Institute, and they have extensive notes collection for different types of materials and care and handling. So something to bear in mind there. And then I mentioned earlier blueprints, and you also have items called cyanotypes, which I think of as blue photographs. There are materials that are alkaline sensitive. Other items would include wool and silk and feathers if you have materials like that in your collections. So if you have those, you don't want to use buffered enclosures. You want to make sure you use unbuffered enclosures, but still acid-free and lignin-free. And the National Park Service has some good information about these types of materials in their conservograms. I love the National Park Service series. They have great information on taking care of collections, and I highly recommend that to take a check. You don't want to do it yourself many times. As I mentioned before, for rare or historically significant or valuable materials, you really want to talk to a conservator about these. And photographs, you really want to leave those to experts. Daguerreotypes should never be taken out of their cases. This is an example of a Dolly Madison photograph. I mean, this is an actual photograph of Dolly Madison. And unfortunately, she was taken out of her case, and there was damage caused to the image. And this is from Library of Congress's collection, but it's just sad that Dolly lost part of her face. And cellulose nitrate, if you have any of this in your collections, you might want to be aware that this can be deadly if it catches fire. Sometimes it can spontaneously ignite. And there's a lot of this floating around. It's also known as nitrocellulose, and it was commonly used for motion picture film and still photographic negatives from 1910 until 1950, so it's a really long time. It off-gases, and that is highly acidic gases such as nitric oxide and nitrogen dioxide and cellulose nitrate. And it's so flammable that it can even burn underwater, and the fumes from burning cellulose nitrate can kill people. So you might be interested, if you have any photographic materials, to check out the National Park Service museum publication that deals specifically with this type of material, and the website is mentioned in this slide. But yeah, this is an actual hazard. Perfect bindings, I'm sure you've seen this. They're like little notepads that fall apart, and I would say this is anything but perfect, but it's a binding style. It's hot melt adhesive that just doesn't work. It doesn't last. And my recommendation is, if you have this, if you can maybe work with your publisher to get a replacement copy for your library if it's a recent publication. What you want to do is, if you can't do that and you want the material, have it rebound. Double fan adhesive binding is pretty much the way to go these days. And you can find a good binder that's a member of the Hardcover Binders International group, formerly the Library Binding Institute, and those binders live up to a certain standard, and they do use the double fan adhesive binding method. And I mentioned NISO standards before, and there's actually a NISO standard that deals with double fan adhesive binding. So there's the NISO standard for everything, as I mentioned before. And then there are resources out there. We have the Conservation Kitchen series. We literally have parts 1 and 2 available as DVDs. They can also be seen through streaming media on our website. You can just watch chapter by chapter, and then we also have handouts available. And then we've also done Conservation Kitchen and made it available on Opal for GPO. And these are also include chat and MP3 files. And then I also have handouts, and I updated today's presentation with the notes as a PDF file. And we also have quick preservation tips that I've put up on the Wilma Whale 2010 Conference Wiki. We had done recipes for disaster for whale in 2010, and the web is still alive and well, so you can retrieve everything, all my notes from today at that page. Dartmouth has some nice information. They have a great simple book repair manual for just real basic things that you can do and not cause damage. The Alaska State Library has a great book online, the Conservation Book Repair Training Manual. It's a classic. It's been around for a long time. Indiana University has their own manual on repair and has a step-by-step slideshow illustrating the techniques, and it's very nicely done. I like the illustrations. Cornell has done an electronic PDF file on preserving books in your home library. Library of Congress, of course, has information about preserving family treasures, and as well as the National Archives. They both have some great information. And then there's the Northeast Document Conservation Center, and they have a little brochure on hints for preserving family collections that's available online. And then there's Preservation Week every April, usually. And that will be coming up next year, April 21st through 27th. And you can create preservation displays at your library, pass the word, do things that will intrigue your customers and get them involved with preservation. The ALCTS has some great ideas on what you can do for Preservation Week. So something, if you want an activity for April, it's something to think about. And then I have my email here that if you have any questions, feel free to send me an email, and I'll be happy to do what I can. And I just want to thank you all for joining us today. And does anybody have any questions now?
Thank you, Diane. That was wonderful. Very good information. This is archived, so please do let us know if you want us to send you the archive. And I invite you to join us next month for the first Tuesday in August, where we will have a session which will provide libraries with an overview of the general eligibility requirements for naturalization, how residents in their community can file for naturalization, the naturalization interview process, and the USCIS publications and resources to help immigrants prepare for naturalization. Information from the session will assist libraries in serving immigrant communities in their areas. It will provide up-to-date information to staff who already teach ESL citizenship information, and will provide an overview for those libraries that might wish to engage in such a service. It will be presented by Ken Bowden, Spokane Field Office Director, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration. So please do join us next month for that one. And that one is on Tuesday, August 7th at 9 a.m. Pacific time. Any questions for Diane?